Howdy y'all, thanks for joining me on my channel. My name is Leland. Today we're going to be working on this lower jaw for this skull in Zbrush, and what we're going to be doing, you can already see some of these landmarks are being put in, and what I'm going to show you is how to start adding some of these textures. These are some of the tools and stuff that unfortunately I learned later in the game, and hopefully this saves you guys some time. So first thing is blocking in the skull. All that it is, I took a sphere and kind of pulled it using the move brush and the transpose until I got the shape I wanted, and then I used the snake hook to get these points so that it meshed with the where I wanted to mesh with the skull. Okay, so where it would meet up. I also did it with made the teeth, and I just mirrored them down so that I can make sure that things are matching up. I could have the correct shape as far as this goes. All right. So now, in order to get these kind of textures, start simple. Just like anything else, you got your A level details, B, and so forth. And I have my reference on the other screen. In fact, I'll show you guys this site, which is called Bone Clones. Okay. Oops. Come here, you. Okay. This has a ton of different skulls on it. It's one of my favorite reference points for skulls. And they got different kinds of animals and stuff. Because this is a humanoid, we're doing a human skull. And they also got different turns of lips. The other thing that's nice with it is it's not perfectly symmetrical. So if we look at this front view, this nasal bone shifts over to where it's not perfectly in the center. This ridge comes a little bit over. There's this crack that's not over here. So it gives you some ideas of stuff to break up the symmetry of your model when you get to that level. So I have this open in my other screen so that I can use it for the reference of landmarks. And even with that being said, because this is a famous skull, that is just for reference and not the end-all be-all of it. Okay? So what we're going to do is when we start building up these textures, I'm going to start off with standard brush, and then, and if you look at my other videos, you're going to see I'll talk about my hotkeys a little bit. Highly recommend hotkeys as usual. But what we're going to do is we're going to use jitter. I use this a lot because I do a lot of organic sculpting. If you do more hard surface, armor and stuff like that, it's going to not help as much. It could cause problems with certain things unless you want rust or something at that level. But for organic stuff, it's really, really nice. It's up between stroke, modifiers, stroke jitter. Okay, so if you don't have a hotkey, you can do that. I have a hotkey for J, so click J, and then I usually go in an increment of 0.5. That way it starts showing up. And what I'm going to do is we're going to start right here on this ridge. Okay, and all that it does is it's the same as making your brush do this, but being able to draw in a general line for what you want. Okay, and then this jawbone is, this area of the jawbone right now is sitting a little higher than I want, so I'm going to turn on the opacity so I can rotate this down just a little bit. Blur the mask, blur it again, go here, got ahead of myself and do it again. Right, there we go, that's more where I want it. Okay, clear that mask. Now, the trick with stroke jitter on, though, is you have to remember that you turned it on, because it's going to affect your brushes, period. So right now, I'm in move, stroke jitter's on. Move doesn't get affected by stroke jitter as bad, I've noticed, but if I go into clay buildup, and I go across, you can really see what it's doing. and if you're not aware of it, it can really mess you up. So what we're going to do is we'll do that, and then we'll turn jitter off. Okay, I'm going to come in here, turn this alpha, because I want to build this part up where these teeth are sitting. And contrary to the front of it, where each tooth kind of has this divot, it looks like in the reference that it doesn't divot as pronounced, and I kind of want to go with that. Up here, I added the divots a little bit further, but these ones are going to be much more subtle. So I'm going to come down and kind of bulk that in. But I don't want to go too crazy with it, right? Also, the clay buildup just without an alpha is so good. It's another brush I use. I use clay buildup with an alpha the majority of the time. Okay, so we have those in. That's actually kind of cool. All right. Go with this. All right, now I'm going to start doing this texture and getting this organic. So I'm going to go over here and put on color spray. And you can do this with an alpha or you can do it without. What it's going to do is it's going to create these uneven bumps. All right, and so by using build and subtract, add and subtract, it's going to cause these differences. But what you want to keep track of is what is going to be going over it, because if you got a really rough spot, so right here has a large muscle that's going to be coming down and feeding into this point, so you don't want a sharp ridge, otherwise that would cut into the muscle and would just end up severing or causing problems later on. So this spot can have some texture, but it wants to be a lot smoother. And even though it's your own creation and you might be going for more of a digital print rather than a 3D print, it still needs to make sense in some level, or anybody looking at it is going to just kind of look at it a little confused. Might not know why, but something just doesn't fit. There's just innate knowledge that everyone just seems to know. You know? Again, they might not understand why, but it wouldn't. And so all I'm doing is going in between clay buildup with the spray. And you can do color spray, and that'll give you a little bit different texture, just kind of stagger a little bit more. Makes some a little more intense, and other ones not as much. And I'm also doing that, and then I'm taking it down to the other smooth. If you see me rocking out too, it's because I've got one of my favorite bands playing. I'm a bit of a metalhead. Okay, and even that's a good example right there. Okay, I want some unevenness to this, but it needs to still be somewhat smooth. So you can have uneven textures and just smooth it down. Sculptress, oh, I've got multiple levels on. Okay, so if you want to use Sculptress, by the way, just go ahead and not have your higher levels. But go through, smooth that with Sculptress. That gives us a little bit of texture, but it's not over the top for what's going to be feeding into that spot. All right. And then if I want to make this part over here a little more of a ridge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use standard with this, build up a little bit, and use if you have your sensitivity on, do a light stroke. Then come down, make it smaller, and that will give you that ridge. All right. Remember that this is going to be 3D printed at a lettered point, so I need it to be exaggerated so that when it gets printed, it will show up. All right. So we're going to go over here, bring that down, build it up. And you just need to go through and mess with it, and that'll give you your stuff. Okay, so now I want that texture under here a little bit more. Okay, right here where this gets sometimes it's hard to talk and do it at the same time. Where this muscle feeds in, I want this to be a little sharper as far as how it divots, all right? Standard's really good. The standard brush is really good for just putting those in really quick, but for sharpening it up and making it to where there's a slope and then just a small overhang, clay buildup I found is my go-to for it. So there we go. Nice. Okay. Awesome. But this needs to have some texture to it. Even though the muscle's feeding into it, so it needs to be relatively smooth, I want to have some texture there. So we're also going to bump this down to the intensity to 10. We're going to go, oh, that looks just right. That's what I want. It's really satisfying when you get like exactly what you want, you know, as far as your textures and stuff. There we go. So you can see by doing that, we've given this texture towards what we want. And so you just want to go over the areas, and build it, and push it back. Right here actually has a solid, it's almost like a triangle of texture. The bones are on the edge. I need a little more geometry, so I'll use Sculptris Pro to just add some, so you can look at how it divided that up a little bit more just in the area, keeping this reduced. That's why I love Sculptris Pro. Keeps the file size down. I can go through here. And I will use the standard to kind of build up that geo without losing. Without using the textures it added. Okay. So that gives us those textures. And you just go over more and more what you're trying to add. All right. So I want this a little more defined. Turn off Sculptris Pro. And if you get to a spot that you think might be too thin, again, this is going to be life size for me, so this isn't too thin, but if it was going to be on a mini, that's going to, something like a 1/32 scale or 1/12 scale, that could be too thin to print. So I would turn on my back face masking by having the brush selected, going over here to auto mask in the brush palette, and click back face mask. I have that hotkeyed just because I use it quite a bit depending on if I'm using or if I'm sculpting for miniatures or if I'm sculpting for cosplay, realistic, or what am I doing? Okay, and you can kind of be, so right there I was a little more staggered with how I was smoothing it because I want it to smooth out, but I don't want it to go too crazy. And from there you can size it down and increase the intensity. The spots where I really want to crank that up, right? Crank that texture and smooth it down. Okay. So you can see that quick, we started getting some of these textures added in. The one last trick I'll let you guys in on is adding these little scratches and stuff. take the damn standard brush. And that's the other fun part, is when you do this randomized texture, you can see it kind of adds in these divots and things, so you can use those as guides to add something. So I'll trace it out, and then I'll do the inverse and sharpen up one side. And then just kind of push that down until it goes to where I want. Okay? And that's more of an aesthetic choice. My reference doesn't really have that. It does have some of these ridges and things that you can do, but sculpting with this spray on will give you those. Okay? And then if I wanted to make some bone layers, the flake brush I have found, or the, flakes over here, works wonders. Alright? Just kind of go through and add some odd textures like that. RGB's on, so it's adding some weird color information. I'm not really worried about it. But I can do that and kind of trace out where that ridge or line is. It will build up kind of some odd flakes like it did right here. And then if I need something exaggerated, I can use the /2, which is in your light box if you don't have it in your palette. And I always like to have this down drastically when I'm working on small things. Okay. And that will give us those odd textures. And I'm going to go through. Alright, I think this color will show. Let's turn it on a little more. Ooh. No, it's not. There we go. Okay, that should show it just a little bit better. Okay, kind of the textures and stuff. Alright. So, if you're making anything organic but it needs a little bit of texture to it, that spray with clay buildup does wonders. Highly recommend it. I wish I would have found it sooner. It's really kicked my sculpting up a notch. And then just using, excuse me, using that jitter to jitter to standard to kind of make some non-perfectly straight lines. Alright. So, there you go. There's some tips and tricks to give you guys some more organic build-up things, and you just want to go through and keep going over it over and over until you get to the level of details you want. And yeah, so thanks for joining me. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, leave a comment if there's something you want to see, and I will see about making a video of ways I go about it. Also, like and subscribe. Love the support. Appreciate it. Get out there and create something.